Welcome everyone, well arrived to Fictitious Facts Friday. Today, on this Friday, by some supposed to be the start of the weekend, we are talking about something that might interest us quite soon, which is the release date of the patches. Not just the release date of the tiny, somewhat small 10.0.7 patch, but also of course of the much bigger, much larger 10.1 patch, or also known as Season 2 of Dragonflight. Why? Why are we talking about this? We are talking about this because a while ago we got the roadmap from Blizzard about their intent of their patch releases, the schedule of their content releases for this year, for 2023. So we saw that in 2023, 6 patches were planned, 4 minor patches and then 2 major patches. So with that in mind already, we had the notion that 6 patches, 12 months, already going by simple maths, it should make a couple of months per patch. And we started following this quite closely because the expansion released at the end of November, and the first patch of the expansion was patch 10.0.5, which launched at the end of January. So our first patch was indeed after a couple of months after the release. Now we already are in the PTR, we already are in the testable version of patch 10.0.7, and guess what was data mined from 10.0.7? This toy right here and a couple of others. These toys are tied to the Noble Garden event, which goes live on the 10th of April. So this would assume that, of course, patch 10.0.7 would be going live before the release of the Noble Garden event, so somewhere between the end of March and the start of April, which would also put the patch going live a couple of months after patch 10.0.5, which was a couple of months after the release of the expansion. That's when we can start trying to draw some conclusions. That's when we might start drawing some conclusions, because assuming 10.0.7 comes out by the end of March, we now have the dates for 2 of the 6 patches for this year. And it might be useful to know the release date, because if we go back to look at the roadmap from Blizzard, Season 2 isn't actually specified, just like Season 3 isn't actually specified when it's coming out. It could be spring, it could be summer. That can be quite the difference. It could be the 5th of May, or it could be the 5th of September. That is a full 4 months worth of difference in time. So it might be useful to start trying to figure out when Season 2 is planned to release by looking at Blizzard's own roadmap. So if after the release of the expansion, Blizzard gives us a roadmap with 6 different patches, and the first 2 patches are indeed being released a couple of months from each other, this would leave us with Season 2 coming out somewhere early June, followed by patch 10.1.5 somewhere in early August, and then patch 10.1.7 somewhere early October, followed by the final patch of the year, which would also be Season 3, the other big patch of the year. That would be purely based on the speculation of our first 2 patches, 0.5 and 0.7, which we know already a lot about. 0.5 because it's already in the game, and 0.7 because it's already on the PTR, and we have started to check out quite a few things about the patch. Also worth pointing out that even though it looks like a long time for the second season of the expansion to be released in June, when the expansion released on the 28th of November, if you think about it, it's 7 months. If Season 2 comes out in June, we go 7 months from the release of the expansion to Season 2. That's almost as much time that we spent in Castle Natria. If you remember, in Shadowlands we had a lot of complaints about the time it took for Blizzard to release the next content patch. Many players thought this was one of the bigger mistakes of Shadowlands, to keep us locked in the first patch, in the first season for so long. Now, if this were to happen in Dragonflight, you can see that not many players would have too many things to complain about because of the two other minor patches we received. Yes, we are still in the same season. Yes, we are still in the same raid. Also, yes, we are still in the same Mythic Plus dungeons. But we also received, before the big patch, before the big season coming out, we also received patch 10.0.5 and 10.0.7. We got the trading post, we got additional open world content with more Primal Storms, the Primalists Tomorrow mini event in patch 10.0.7. We will get a new zone to play in with the Forbidden Reach. So technically we would be spending the same time waiting for the next season as we did in Shadowlands, but it wouldn't feel nearly as empty. So props and a round of applause to the introduction of these small patches without actually adding that much content, that much competitive content like raids and Mythic Plus and new seasons, etc., etc., that still can keep the player base busy, give them a feeling of feeling refreshed with more things to do every day compared to the previous expansions, Shadowlands in particular. Now, talking about the release dates, there is of course the question mark. Since this is Blizzard, this is Activision Blizzard, there is of course the question mark of this kind of thing happening in June. Maybe you don't care, maybe you don't follow this type of genre, but early June, what is also going to happen within Blizzard is the release of Diablo 4. Now, in our supposed schedule, Season 2 is planned to come out in June. Early June, in fact. Maybe you are one of the guys or the gals who does not believe in the developers not trying to release the same game, the game made by them, at the same time. What would I gain in releasing two games of mine at the same time? I'm just going to conflict players in choosing which one to play. So isn't it better, wouldn't it be better to just split them, to just release one, in 1 month and then the next one a couple of months later or a couple of months earlier, to make sure players can spend time in both? Maybe you don't believe that's a practice done by developers, but who does believe in that sort of thing would definitely go and think that with the release of Diablo 4 being on June the 6th, then this predicted schedule, this roadmap with Season 2 coming out in June starts looking a bit fishy, right? Why would Blizzard want to put the release of their next Diablo game at the same time of their new WoW season? So maybe that is what might change the release schedule of this expansion. Maybe we are going to have a divide, a split, where we are going to get a bit of an accelerated release of patches up until Season 2, so we can release Season 2 something around a month before the release of Diablo 4, and then a delayed release of the following patches, so they don't release as close to the release of Diablo 4. That is something that might happen if you are one of the players who believes that a developer would try to not create a conflict of interest within their own titles, within their own games. But what we can see is that whether or not the release schedule of the patches follows a pretty standard and straight 2 months gap between the patches, or if we have a slight change where the first 3 or so patches are somewhat accelerated to come out before Diablo 4, and then the following 3 patches are somewhat delayed to come out after Diablo 4, you can still see that the amount of content and the amount of patches planned for this year is very, very crowded. We have very rarely been in a situation in WoW where we had gotten to think about so many patches coming out so quickly, so often. Not even in Legion, which was our start of so-called modern WoW, where we did have a lot of patches, not even then, not even in Legion, we did get so many patches to talk about, to look at when talking about the new content being added in the game. So either way, no matter which of the two options Blizzard ends up going with, it is still quite a good feeling to have if you are a WoW player, knowing that you have so many things to look forward towards when you are playing your favorite or one of your favorite games. Personally, in my, of course, biased view, I'm hoping Blizzard goes for the second option, for anticipating the release of Season 2, as to not have it come out at the same time as Diablo 4. Mostly because I plan on playing the game, so I would want to be able to play Season 2 to its fullest without having to come in conflict with another game. So that is currently my position as far as the release schedule for this expansion goes. Let me guys know, of course, what is your take on these release dates and schedules for the Dragonflight expansion, if you are perfectly fine on them releasing at the same time, because after all, you don't care at all about any other game. You would just rather want more patches coming out quickly. Or if you too are fine with the game being delayed and the patches being a little bit messed up by the release of other Blizzard titles. But with this point out of the way, we are done with Fictitious Facts Friday. I am going to leave you to the rest of your Friday. As usual, of course, we start our goodbyes by thanking all of my Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel. You can support in other free ways, like, for example, liking and commenting down below on this video, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. You can still support in other ways. You can follow me over at Twitter. You can also follow on my stream over at Twitch, which will be going live, the experts said, in a bit. And with this being over, it's time to say goodbye for real. Thank you guys again for watching. See you guys soon. And in the meantime, this is the part where I'm supposed to leave you by saying something interesting, except for today, actually, I have nothing